Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. Today I wanted to again shoot another BOLO out. As I've said, the more items you know to look for, the more money you are going to make. There's just no way around that. I promise you that that is the case. That's why I can go to a place and look for tons of different items and always come out with something good. But again, bulk is the best way for us. So we're going to talk today about something maybe you're not familiar with, maybe you don't understand or haven't seen. They're plate toppers, license plate toppers. Now, it may not sound like a big niche, but there's multiple collectors for these types of items. The best niches are ones that have cross-category interest. Like a plate topper has an interest from a car buff. It also has interest from tourists that, travel and buy these in certain places, or local cities as well. There's 4 or 5 different categories many of these plate toppers can be put in, and some of them go for hundreds, even into the thousands. But the BOLO for today is plate toppers. So we're going to go over the screen, and I'm going to show you exactly what we're talking about here, what to look for, distinguishing some of the earlier ones from the newer ones and such forth. But we're going to go to the screen right now. Okay, so today is plate toppers. A lot of people don't know what they are, but these actually just go on top of license plates. A lot of people wouldn't even recognize what this is. Once you've seen a couple of them, you can kind of see how they hook on. But again, most people pass these by. When I see license plates and things like that, I usually look for these instead, because these will sell almost always higher than a license plate. So that's one thing I always look for. I pass on license plates and I go for these right off the bat. So anyway, this one went for $2,000. And this isn't odd. There are some that go this high. Usually they're a few $100s for any decent one, at least the ones that we find. Here's another one. Now, this one's a common one. I should say not really common, but this one shows up fairly often, believe it or not. But they always sell very high. Some of them have names and things on the back, too. This one's National Safety Device. It's a standard one. This one's almost $700. Again, it's not a huge category, but there's thousands of them up on eBay. And for the majority of them, I sell them every time I get them. And they never sit in stock more than a week or so, depending on how you price them, of course. But here's another one. Any of these auto clubs from the 1910, 20, 30s, 40s all go. They're usually enamel. They're small for the most part, much smaller than a license plate. You'll see various types of hooks and attachments on the back too. This one's from a Auto Club of America. It's kind of like an early AAA membership kind of thing, but there was tons of them for different cities. Even certain automobile makers had their own. This one's $600. Again, that's all these are, is just plate toppers. Every one you see here. There's a ton of oil company ones too, because these could have been bought at gas stations right where you got the oil, and it would have also been advertisements for the company that actually made the oil. So anyway, this one's $599. Let's see here. Now, this one's one that most people miss. I've had one of these, believe it or not. Look at the price, $557, 20 bids. Now, I would have just put this up as a bin at $750. I would have probably gotten $650 out of it, I would have gathered, just from the experience I've had. Now, these are usually shiny. They're chrome. This one's worn. Again, who would have known this was a plate topper? Not many people. Now, I would. The eyes are glass, believe it or not. They're marked. All of them are marked, or all the ones that I have personally seen. And then they, as I said, have embedded glass eyes, just like the old stop signs do, like a marble basically, that are reflective. So the eyes would kind of glisten and reflect when light was shined on them. So rather interesting item. Again, these are small. You can see the guy's finger in there. Here's another one. Again, these go all the way up. I've sold, football teams, baseball teams, city teams, all kinds of them. So anything like this sells. Obviously, the Packers right here, Green Bay Packers. Another good one here, too. So $403. This was an early one, so they even sell newer ones. I've sold Coke ones from the 70s, 80s, even some from the 90s. Usually I pay $1 or $2 for the newer ones. Now, old ones like this, you might get lucky at a flea market, or at a auction, or even at a antique mall when people don't know what they are. But you can usually tell if you've had enough of them. The bottom brackets there you see, there's also 2 holes between of and the packet or Packers. Those are also like secondary mounting, so you can mount them several different ways. But again, $403 on this one. New Orleans. Now, this is a newer one, not super new, 50s or 60s, but they always seem to sell. Now, again, all marked. You may not realize, what this is or anything if you saw it. It doesn't have a company name, but design patent pending for the design itself. $3.99, another $400 one. Now, I could show you thousands of these that did sell. Like, here's a common one. I think this one's a little different. This one would have screwed on, and it would actually cover up a little section, segment of the actual license plate. This isn't very big. It's like 8 inches across, maybe 6 inches tall, if I remember right. I've seen most of these in person. Again, because I've been into antiques and stuff for a long time. We've been doing this full time for 6+ years now, and we've actually been on eBay since the very first year was called eBay. So I've been into antiques my whole life. We do collect things as well too. So this one's $385 basically. Again, I'm not going to show you a ton because you're just going to have to know and look for these. Now, this one has the original plastic, so this one's a little better, but this one's $357. This would have been something I would have probably put up for $500 and just seen what happens on bin-wise. Excellent condition. This is like a collectible item. And most everyone I've showed you has many collectors, like the owl one alone. Animal collectors and things like that. Advertising collectors. Car collectors. All of these sell. There's Halloween ones even. The owl could be considered a Halloween, depending on the version. There's some that are painted black. There's some that are chrome. This is a very good example here, and this is something that you might find. I mean, I might run into one of these for like 20 or 30 bucks somewhere because someone had no idea that it was a plate topper. That's the problem. Most people don't understand what a plate topper is, have no clue. I mean, they still make these things today. Now, here's a different style of one. This is actually a city tag. Now, you're going to see city tags for tons of different cities. This just basically showed that you were from the city. Some of them had actual numbers like this one, 630. So you could track it down by the city as well, too. Because back at some point, they didn't have the county listed on them like they do nowadays on most of the tags. So you'd have to get a secondary tag, or you might have to, depending on your city. And they might charge you a fee for the license plate as well, too. So that was a way the city got an extra fee. You can see the mounting brackets. They're all pretty much similar to this. But again, I would always pass up the plates to go for these, unless the plates are like the earlier ones, like 1910s, 20s at the very latest. After that, they're not worth a huge amount of money unless you get certain ones. Now, regular license plates can go up to the thousands, but again, it depends on which ones. Now, like provincial ones or territorial ones usually go better, like a Honolulu, Hawaii one or something, which I think I have it. Yeah, Honolulu's the next one here. Now, this is a known one, so that's why you see a date on it. Some of them have dates on them, too, believe it or not. But this is another city tag. This is when Hawaii was still a territory. And you can find them like that, so don't think that's odd. This one's $350. Again, I'm not going to show you a ton of these. You can look them up. When you run into something like this and you haven't a clue what it is, it's probably a plate topper if it looks like this. They're usually chromed. Not all the time, though, but mostly chromed. I've seen cast iron and such forth. And they're nothing really fancy. Most people would not realize that they're worth this much. This one's $350. Now here's repeal of the 18th Amendment. If you're not familiar with that, I won't give it away. Everybody should know what that is, though. Same with the 19th Amendment, but anyway. And this actually has the paperwork with it, it looks like. So this is a pretty good one here. And there was tons of them. Advertisement, political, there's Eisenhower and FDR. I mean, whatever you could imagine they made plate toppers for. And most of them don't look like this. Most of them do not look like a license plate. A plate topper can be one that would go on the front that's the exact size of a license plate, because some states didn't require them, and even up into the newer days, some states still don't require two plates, one in the front and back. So this would technically be a plate topper. The subject on this one is more of why it's worth so much at $350. Now here's a smaller one. Again, some of these, it depends on how they were made to be hung. This one was made to be hung downwards as opposed to off the top, but there's the clip. You can see it. Now some of these didn't actually go on the plate. They would have just mounted to the front of your car. Anybody who's seen a ton of old photographs, back in, the 20s and 30s and 40s, plate toppers were a big fad. Half the cars or more of the cars on the road have them. And I run into, photos of vintage cars from the 20s all the time with plate toppers. I've shown some in some of my hauls and some videos as well, some of my photos. So you can kind of get a gist on, these were just very popular. They've pretty much disappeared, these smaller style ones. And the frames are considered plate toppers technically.
definitely too when you see a frame that goes around your plate. So most people should be aware of it. You may not know the term plate topper though. This is 316 plus. Another plate topper. Now this is a pretty neat one. I would have probably put this one up for like 5 and then settled around 4, which would have been a little higher than this, but I would have been out the door and been done. These always sell. This is a double one. This is Pegasus from Mobile Oil, and it's from the California World's Fair. This would have been actually at the Mobile Oil Pavilion at the World's Fair, and they had dinosaurs and things like that there too that you could have bought. And I think I've even shown some of those too as well, but $369. Now here's another interesting one, and a lot of people miss these, or they just don't think they're worth that much. But you've got 300 out of this one, 1948 Ski Oregon. And Oregon's not a huge area. There's not a huge value in most items from Oregon as a collectible wise. I mean, there's some scattered. It just depends on what it is. But this is one of those strange ones because it's a plate topper. It only has 2 mounts on the bottom. That dictates it's very specifically a plate topper. So anyway. Again, there's not a lot to this category, so, you know, I'm just calling your attention to this. They show up for, you name it, they did it. Now, this one you could date. There's a patent number on there, so you can just look that up. This is probably, 50s, I was going to say myself, just by that number. When you've seen a ton of patent numbers and you've looked up enough as I have, you can pretty much look at the number and kind of give a real good idea on when it was made by how many digits there are and, you know, what the digits are, that is. So, anyway, this looks new almost. This is just an amazing, nice condition piece. You can see, again, the size. This is small. Just made to stick up on top. This might even be 60s, but I think by the date or by the marking it's 50s, actually late 50s. Let's see, here's another one. World War II. Anything World War II like this I always snag up. You know, I've spent 20, 30, 40 bucks for one almost identical to this. You're getting $250 minimum out of any ones from World War II that are patriotic like this. You know, somebody might even actually put this on their vintage car. That's why they're collectible. Just because people still use these on antique and collectible cars. It pretty much sets the tone, and it would have been natural to see one on a vintage car or a car back in those days. So anyway, $279. And the last one I'm going to show you again, as I said, there's a ton of these up. I could spend hours showing you, you know, some really nice ones here that went for hundreds of dollars. Take some time and look them up if you're interested. Otherwise, pay attention to the mounting and to the mounts on the bottom to dictate what it is. Because there's some that are rack mounts, too, that you might think are plate toppers, but they're actually for, like, on an advertising rack in a store. Like, there's some Pepsi ones that people mix up as plate toppers, but they're not. But they would have been the racks that actually held the soda six-packs, or however you bought them at the time. So, anyway, Tahoe, again, $228. This one's probably late 50s, early 60s, but again, these all sell. So again, spend some time and look them up if you're interested. This category is a big money maker for us because most people haven't a clue on what these are. So again, keep an eye out, keep an ear out. I've showed you some aluminum items and some of the hot rod plates and things like that. This all ties into them. The Hot Rod Club license plates are similar to plate toppers, and you can find those in plate topper versions. And you can actually list those as, you know, Hot Rod Club license plates, plate topper as well, because they would have put them right next to the actual named, you know, city license plate or state license plate. So anyway, that's what I have for you today.
Well, there you go. There's another BOLO. There's another item I always look for. As I said, we look for as many items as we can find. It really, really helps us out greatly. It increases our profits across the board. Every time you can add a new item to your repertoire of items you look for, the better off you will be no matter what. I promise you that is the case. You got to know the area, and you got to spend some time researching it when you find the items, though. So again, research is always key to whatever niche you are in. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.